This week, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, just raised Taiwan's 2025 growth forecast to 3.7%. Now, that's higher than the United States at 2% and far above Japan and the Eurozone, both hovering near 1%. Among advanced economies, that makes Taiwan one of the rare standouts, a small island outpacing giants around the world. The report credits easing tariffs, stable markets, and surge of AI-driven investment. On paper, Taiwan is definitely thriving, and the economy might be stimulated further. At home, lawmakers have approved a 336 billion special budget promising 10,000 NT dollars in cash handout. That's approximately $300 to every citizen starting in November. Abroad, Taiwan's deepened trade ties with Canada, while Washington moves ahead with $1 billion defense aid and a potential RIMPAC, that's Rim of the Pacific Military Exercise Invitation. Its partnership multiplies, so do its dependencies. Taiwan's partnerships are multiplying. Meanwhile, the government's digital planning are pitching AI as salvation for labor-starved restaurants. A reminder that innovation here happens not only in chip labs, but in kitchen and night markets as well. Yet as technology races ahead, traditional sectors like textile are calling for help, and China's new rare earth controls remind everyone that even advanced economies run on vulnerable supply chains. Taiwan may be outpacing the world, but keeping that balance between growth and equity, autonomy and alliance will determine whether this momentum endures. And that's what we're going to talk about this week here on Beyond the Reefs. Hi, you're listening to Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. Here we talk about socio-economic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world beyond the reefs of this island nation. Let's start with our first story.
People in Taiwan are set to get a $330 cash handout from the government. That's after the legislature passed an $18 billion special budget on Friday. Taiwan's cabinet first proposed the special budget back in April in response to US President Donald Trump's tariffs on Taiwanese goods. The bill also includes funding for defense, infrastructure, and social programs. The opposition-held legislature made several revisions to the bill, causing it to bounce back and forth between the two government branches. The universal cash handouts are expected to start in early November.
That's right. Taiwan's legislature passed a 550 billion new Taiwan dollars, approximately nearly 20 billion US dollars special budget to counter tariff effects and support households. That includes a 10,000 cash handouts new Taiwan dollars. That's approximately 300 US dollars for citizens, foreign permanent residents, and eligible foreign spouses. Distribution could begin as early as November once promulgated, according to officials. Proponents say that this special budget year marked for payouts should stabilize sentiment and boost short-term consumption as tariff uncertainty lingers, while leaving room for targeted industry support. The bill cleared its third reading with rare cross-party coordination, reflecting anxiety about household costs and external headwinds despite solid macro data, or it could just be a political play. Regardless, the administration frames the package as temporary relief within a broader resilience agenda that also includes investment and defense outlays. Opponents worry about one-off transfers, limited multipliers, and the risk of normalizing cash politics, which has happened several times over the last few years, including during the COVID period. Implementation details, online registrations versus automatic deposits, will influence uptake and speed, and the cabinet plans a public schedule after promulgation. Now, cash handouts are a confidence instrument, even if the marginal propensity to consume is moderate. Timing before year-end can lift services and retail. Say if 90% of the recipients claim the gross injection approaches, 230 billion new Taiwan dollars? That's roughly 0.8 or 0.9% of GDP. That's enough to smooth a choppy fourth quarter without overheating inflation. The design risk is equity. Universal payout helps speed, but they blunt target. Politically, the bipartisan vote signals consensus to buy time while structural policies spool up. Evidence from prior Taiwan handouts and Japan's 2020 cash program, for example, suggests a short and front-loaded boost to, say, card transactions and convenience retail with weaker durable good effects. And that makes sense. People tend to spend smaller amounts of cash handouts on things that's immediately in front of them, but they might not buy a new house still. Net, this is a bridge measure. It won't solve tariff or cost push pressures, but it can keep household spendings through a newsy-heavy quarter while the government rolls out deeper fixes. Hopefully, there are deeper fixes. Now, this test will be whether one-off relief transitions into productivity-raising investments rather than, say, repeated checks. Now, on to our second piece. Foreign Minister Lin Jialong met Marie-Louise Hahn, Canada's new representative to Taiwan, and said the economic cooperation framework is still, quote, progressing steadily, despite delay tied to Canada's federal election. Both sides cited momentum since Canada's 2022 Indo-Pacific strategy, plus recent investment protection and science-tech arrangement in 2023 and 2024. The emerging agenda spans semiconductors, AI, energy, and mining, areas that Ottawa has prioritized to de-risk supply chains and deepen presence in the region. Lin said negotiations have been constructive and that teams on both sides are satisfied with progress to date. The visit also marks 40 years of Canada's trade office in Taipei next year. This is a symbolic milestone as Ottawa widens regional deployment under the Indo-Pacific strategy with new posts, naval rotations, and sectoral ties that sit outside the U.S.-China binary. Now, the diversification by inches is happening here. Less splashy than U.S. moves, but strategically meaningful. Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy carries approximately 2.3 billion Canadian dollars over 5 years and a mandate to show up across security and economic channels. That budget underwrites diplomats, agri offices, and naval presence, creating bureaucratic muscle memories that keeps Taiwan in Ottawa's line of sight regardless of political cycles. For Taipei, Canada offers 3 practical levers. 1, critical mineral supply. 2, standards and research links in AI and clean tech. And 3, like-minded G7 partner that lowers concentration risk. You add that to Ottawa's periodic Taiwan Strait transits, which signals political will at manageable temperature. Now, the risk is that Canadian politics can slow paperwork, and Ottawa's Asia bandwidth is finite. Also, the Canadian economy is pretty much a shadow of the U.S. economy. Still, as portfolio hedges, the Taiwan-Canada track is real, measured by agreements signed and offices opened, not just headlines. Now, on to our next topic. This time we're talking about the U.S. The U.S. Senate passed its NDAA authorizing $925 billion US dollars and $1 billion of that in military aid for Taiwan, while strongly encouraging the Pentagon to invite Taiwan's Navy to RIMPAC, that's the Rim of Pacific, military exercises, the world's largest maritime exercises. The bill directs expanded cooperation on unmanned systems, counter-UAS, and cyber, asking for Taiwan Security Assistant Roadmap, and explores a regional contingency stockpile. It also folds in the Taiwan Non-Discrimination Act, pushing support for Taiwan's membership at the IMF. Now, final appropriations still require separate legislation and Senate-House reconciliation before heading to the President, Donald Trump, for signature. For Taipei, aside from the $1 billion US dollars, which is no small number, the prize is interoperability. Practicing with around 30 navies, aligning communications, and speeding procurement cycles in stones and software-defined defenses. 3 implications, though. Time, tech, and trust. Time, a roadmap. Stockpile suggests Washington wants a pre-positioned resilience before crises that compresses Taiwan's procurement window for years to quarters. Tech, unmanned and cyber reflects lessons from Ukraine, attribute systems, ISR MASH, electronic warfare. Taiwan's edge will be software speed more than platform count. Finally, trust. RIMPAC exposure is signaling upgrades that normalizes Taiwan within US-led maritime networks. caveat is that authorizations are not appropriations. Execution depends on manufacturing throughout and export controls. Still, if Taipei links NDAA pipelines to local suppliers, it can anchor dual-use ecosystems that spill into civilian AI and robotics, turning defense into industrial policies by other means, and this could further boost the island's economy. Finally, with so much talk about AI, let's see how it's currently being implemented into the closest factor into human lifestyle. Digital Deputy Minister Isabel Hu pitched AI as remedy for Taiwan's restaurant labor shortage at the Unbox AI Smart Food Collection for Small Business event, which showcased tools covering ordering, inventory, demand forecasting, and precision marketing, with the ministry stressing 5 policies rails: compute, data, talent, marketing, and funding. The narrative is cultural as much as economic. AI to help preserve traditional eateries facing succession gaps and rising costs. Officials floated the idea of making Taiwan a base for smart dining solutions to export abroad. Think of this as Taiwan's other AI revolution. Not chips or data centers, but noodle shops and breakfast stalls. It's a way to keep culture alive while fixing a labor shortage, which is happening throughout the world, especially here in Taiwan. If a small restaurant can use AI to know exactly how much rice to cook, or when customers usually arrive, it saves both time and money. Trails in Japan and Korea shows that automation can cut food waste by almost 10%. That's huge for tight margin eateries. The trick is making it simple. Not every chef wants to stare at a dashboard all day. If government programs can offer ready-made systems or training sessions through local associations, the adoption curve could look a lot like how mobile payments spread. Slow at first, then everywhere. So this is one-of-a-kind innovation that Taiwan can sell to the world. It's AI that's practical, affordable, and human. Now let's get to the pinnacle of today's stories.
The International Monetary Fund has raised Taiwan's GDP growth forecast to 3.7%, ahead of overall global growth of 3.2%. According to the IMF's latest report, Taiwan's GDP outlook is up 0.8% from an earlier forecast. This adjustment puts Taiwan's GDP projection above other Asia-Pacific economies. Taiwan's numbers have seen a boost from investment in AI-related tech and increased exports. But the IMF lowered its prediction for next year's growth in line with a global decrease.
The local stock market surged to a new high on Tuesday morning. The country's benchmark index, the TAIEX, climbed past the 27,500 mark during early trading. That's after it dropped sharply at open the day before. The rebound was driven by TSMC stocks as the market reacted to recent developments in AI. Investor sentiment was also boosted by an apparent easing of trade tensions between the US and China over potential new tariffs and export controls on rare earths.
Yes, it would seem that Taiwan's economy is thriving. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has given Taiwan an upgrade, predicting 3.7% economic growth next year, one of the fastest among advanced economies. That's, for example, the United States sitting at around 2%, Japan and Europe near 1%, and Canada, I think, has been projected just under 2% for the next 10 years or something. Inflation in Taiwan is expected to stay mild at about 1.7%, so that's a very healthy GDP growth compared to inflation, and unemployment around just 3.4%. The IMF credits easing global tariffs, better financial conditions, and rising investment in artificial intelligence and advanced manufacturing. In short, the world sees Taiwan as a standout performer, a small, trade-driven economy keeping its footing while others slow down. Now, this is a high point of the week. Taiwan's hard numbers finally catching up with its reputation for resilience. But forecasts are like weather report. They can change very fast. The IMF's optimism assumes the current calm in tariffs and supply chains will hold, and that is a big if. For households, the question is whether this growth actually feels real. Would it mean better wages or just stronger stock prices? For government planners, it's the moment to shift from short-term boosts like cash handouts to long-term bets, energy upgrades, housing, and education. Taiwan's challenge isn't producing growth, it's spreading it evenly and keeping it stable when the winds shift again. But it's not like Taiwan is not facing any headwinds. At this year's Taipei Innovative Textile Application Show, Taiwan's textile industry made a rare public plea. Facing U.S. tariffs, a strong new Taiwan dollars, and China's pricing dump, the industry is struggling to stay competitive. What was once Taiwan's biggest sector is now suffering. On top of that, the European Union's new digital product passport, the DPP rule, will soon require every piece of clothing sold in Europe to list its materials and carbon footprint. Federation Chairperson James Guo said many local companies can't afford that kind of data tracking. That's adding extra cost onto the production line. While Vice President Xiaobi Kim promised more government support and new trade talks with Washington, the message from exhibitors was clear. The green transition is here, but small and mid-sized manufacturers can't make it alone. So this story brings us back down to earth. While tech and AI grab headlines, thousands of factory workers still run Taiwan's traditional export engine. And the EU's new digital passport rule might sound like a paperwork change, but it means buying new machines, new software, and retraining staff. Expensive steps for family-owned mills. Some bigger players are already adapting by marketing traceable eco-fabrics that fetch better prices, but smaller ones risk getting squeezed out. So government grants or shared certification platforms could help spread the cost. Otherwise, Taiwan's global success story will look uneven. High-tech industries racing ahead while older sectors fade quietly. Growth, it turns out, doesn't feel the same for everyone. But to quote that famous line from Jurassic Park, life will find a way, and here is how Taiwan's textile sector is planning to find its way.
A robotic arm. Given a helping hand, this new technology is making it more efficient for Taiwan's textile manufacturers to make clothes and shoes worn every day around the world. Taiwan's textile industry is a key global player. Taiwanese businesses supply about 70% of all functional textiles sold and used around the world, and the $200 billion industry is making big changes. This new technology on display at the Innovative Textile Application Show in Taipei demonstrates how shoes can be made through a spraying process instead of weaving, boosting production speed by more than 80%.
This pair of shoes is made from a type of environmentally friendly plastic, a comfortable material for everyday use. And now, thanks to latest technology, they can be made in just 12 minutes.
These shoes made using robots are being adopted by leading Japanese sports brand Mizuno to streamline the supply chain and make lighter, more practical shoes. Other innovations helping keep the sector competitive include using fabrics made from captured carbon emissions. The technology enabled this Adidas supplier, which also made Real Madrid's World Cup jerseys, to cut carbon emissions from high-output factories. It's already drawn business from more than 10 global brands. But while going green matters, managing costs is just as important. This Nike supplier says it's using new AI and 5G networks to improve efficiency. The company says these new tools can make better use of a shrinking workforce in Taiwan, helping save energy and cut costs. Even with growing competition and trade challenges, Taiwan's textile makers are betting on innovation and sustainability to stay ahead in the global fabrics market.
And there you go. Taiwan's economy is balancing on tightrope just like everybody else. Strong growth on one side, real fragility on the other. From AI-powered diners to struggling textile mills. It's a nation learning that progress isn't just about speed, but balance. Foreign ties are deepening, cash is flowing, optimism is back, yet again, comes with a cost. Dependence, pressure, or the weight of expectation. The next challenge isn't to grow faster, but to grow steadier. And we will continue this conversation next week. That does it for this episode. I'm Joey Chow. Let's go beyond the reefs again next time, right here with Radio Taiwan International.